Hello, everyone. Welcome to this bonus episode of the Sky Sports F1 podcast, where we're going to do our top 10 team principles of 2023. We've already done the drivers, so we thought it was only fair we gave the team principles a go. To help me do this, I'm joined by David Croft and Ted Kravitz. Hello to both of you. Ted,
Hello.
You're already smiling. Why
to help me, because
smiling?
I thought you were going to say, to help me in this thankless task. I've roped in two people who are just going to get in trouble with themselves. Yes, the reason why we're doing it is because Crofty and I have the most contact with the team bosses?
Yeah.
Crofty?
And we're the most amiable to get you out of a massive hole that you've just dug for us both. And also, we had nothing better to do this afternoon than try and defend your honour. No, this is going to be fun.
Well, it's the middle of Christmas, isn't it? We should say happy Christmas, happy holidays for everyone who's celebrating.
Absolutely.
And nothing else to do. We should also add the disclaimer that we don't actually believe what we're saying. This is just a series of devil's advocate opinions on things. Anyone who wants to pick up this, and I know it's a fallow period for F1 websites over the Christmas season, and wants to make some stories of this, you can't attribute what we're about to say to us because we neither believe it nor is it the views of Sky Sports F1. There you go, Matthew. There's your disclaimers.
Whatever he just said. And that's the first time and probably the last that we're going to agree on this entire podcast.
Yes.
Smashing. Right, disclaimer out the way. Let's have a look at these team principles. I thought before we get into talking about where we put everyone and go through them sort of team principle by team principle, let's talk about the criteria that we're going to rank our team principles on. In my research for this, I was thinking, what are the key elements of a team principle? What do they need to do? So the first category is leadership. And this is the overall direction they are pointing the team, long-term, short-term goals. Are they an inspiring figure? Would you go into battle for this one team principle? And how well perhaps they fight the case of their team with the FIA, with Formula One? Anything anyone wants to add on the leadership element?
I think the leadership has changed a lot from the old days. From Ted, from when you first started, when team principals tended to be owners and in charge of their own teams. And I think leadership was very different in those days. The basic core principles still remain, that you want a team principal that will inspire their workforce to go out and annihilate the competition week after week after week. But I think there's a much more a political edge to it now, and not always acting on your own instincts, but maybe on what is best or demanded by the people above you, i.e. those who own the team.
Yes, there is a couple of, because we've got this year, and to extent last year, but I think mainly this year, we see sort of two types of team boss, team principal. We see the sort of technical team principal who has somebody above them. I'm thinking Andrea Stella, Mike Crack, and probably Alessandro Luni-Bravi. They are technical team bosses, and they have, in the case of Zach Brown, Lawrence Stroll, and Andrea Stella, and whoever owns Sauber these days, Audi, half of the quarter of them, they've got somebody above them, so they're not invested in a leadership role in terms of the old sort of Ron Dennis, Frank Williams, what you're talking about, Crofty, in terms of owning part of the team. Toto Wolff owns part of the team. Christian Horner doesn't. So then you do have a mix, but Christian Horner's much more in the old tradition of team principles. Great.
That's leadership. Three more categories. Technical performance, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. How well the team are doing on track, how well they're operating within the rules, how well they've understood the current regulations in Formula One. The next category, HR, I've put loosely, which kind of is management of people, but that might be the drivers. Have they got bickering drivers? Are they keeping everyone happy beneath them? But that also includes the strategists, engineers, mechanics, everyone associated with the team. The final category, which I think is quite interesting for us to discuss, is media and sponsorship duties. So what is their relationship like with the media? How appealing are they, and how present are they, perhaps in the social media world, in the public world? How often do they appear, for example, on Sky Sports? Some appear regularly, some don't.
And it's a massively important part of the job, to be honest. And I want to say to every single team principal that joins us from the pit wall throughout the season, we are eternally grateful for the insight that you provide. But it's that connection with the fans that social media and the relaxation of what you can and can't do social media wise at a racetrack has brought now, but also with the partners and the sponsors of the teams too. And team principal's job does not end when qualifying ends or a practice session ends. It often is only just getting going, and there's an awful lot they do throughout the race weekend to engage with the partners, those that are bringing the money in to the team, which is just as important as appearing on Sky Sports from time to time.
Yeah, I mean, it's not how many times you appear on Sky Sports, is it, Crofty? But, it's whether you can back up your team and defend your team. But also on this, let's bear in mind that there are other team principals whose job this is. So Alessandro Luni-Bravi, for example, is the team representative of Alfa Romeo Sauber. He doesn't really get involved in the technical side. So there are different levels and excuses as to why people won't be ranked quite as highly as others, simply because it's not really their job.
Has everybody given James Vowles a follow on Instagram?
Oh, absolutely. No. Why?
I don't want to follow these guys on Instagram. Should they be on Instagram? Actually, that brings me on to an interesting point as to how one team principal, in my eyes, has been marked down because of his enthusiasm for Instagram. But we'll get to that later.
Very good.
Ooh.
Why should we follow James Vowles on Instagram?
Because he's fascinating, he's engaging, he's warm, and also he posted a really cute picture of him and his partner and their newborn baby just a couple of months ago as well, which I really liked.
There you go. Ted, that's reason enough, surely.
I've given up on social media these days. I post pictures of nice things on Instagram. I thought when I started, Instagram was for posting arty pictures of cars and racing drivers. So, that's what I do on there.
My most popular picture this year was a picture of Ted and I in a back row of a cinema. It was a beautiful night, and it got a lot of likes.
There you go. No rhyme or reason for these algorithms. Right, let's crack on then. So we're going to do this in reverse championship order. So we're going to start with the team that finished last this year, which is Haas and Günther Steiner. I think we've just spoken about media and sponsorship, and that probably is the place to begin, really, with Günther Steiner and his role. Since Drive to Survive, he has become a massively a large figure in the paddock. We can say that. Ted, go on. Give me your sort of breakdown of how you believe Günther Steiner fits into this top 10.
So for media and sponsorship, I have ranked Günther 5th, which is higher than most other rankings I give him, just because he's a very good communicator. We know that. So he has managed to explain away, and that's all we ask team principals to do, is to explain away the troubles so that people can understand. So the way he explained it to us in Abu Dhabi was that we started with the wrong concept. We pinned everything on getting the right concept in Austin with the big upgrade, and that didn't work. So we really need to look at all of our processes. We have great drivers. We think Nico Hülkenberg's been fantastic. Kevin Magnussen's been good. And, well done to Günther Steiner for managing them. We'll get into the HR with him later. And he's managed not to keep Gene Haas on board and explain to Gene Haas what the problems are. And I think that's part of the sort of communication as much as anything else, of keeping the owner of the team happy. So I think Günther Steiner is good at explaining things and communicating things. And on the leadership as well, he keeps the team with him. I think were he to go for any kind of perceived lack of performance of the car, then that would be badly met from the team, who would all follow him anywhere.
Crofty, what about the on-track performance of Haas this year and how he's managed? Because 2022, the start of the new regulations, was good for Haas. They were outperforming the car, and then cut to 2023, it's been a difficult season, hasn't it, for Haas?
Yeah, well, it has. I think if we were marking on a Saturday, we'd probably give Haas way bigger marks than we have done for an overall on a Sunday as well. And just to muddle things a little bit, I've given marks out of 10 rather than ranking my team principals. I've actually thought, no, I'm going to do what Ted does and do that little schoolmaster's report here and give marks out of 10. I think technically, and I know Haas are a bit hamstrung because of the way they operate and the fact that their budget is not as significant as others. They're not reaching the cost cap, for instance. They've not addressed the problems, the inherent problems of that car throughout the season. And that's got to come from the top, because it was obvious from the start, and they said it themselves. where the difficulties lay and what needed addressing, and it didn't get addressed soon enough, and it didn't get addressed correctly in the end. So as much as I admire Gunter, and I do hugely admire Gunter, and I've given him 8 out of 10 for media and sponsorship, because I think Gunter, without Gunter, what would be the mass fan appeal of Haas? I know they're an American team with an American owner, but Gunter is Haas to a lot of people, and he has absolutely done a brilliant job for the team in terms of putting them on the map. But technically, it's a 3 out of 10 for me.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right, Crofty. On technical performance, Gunter's last. He's 10th out of 10 for me.
And that decision not to change things up earlier in the season, I'm led to believe came from Gunter, came from the top, and that's sadly why the ranking is kind of lower down. It's not a case of, well, we can't do it. It's a case of no, we don't need to do it. Let's just see how things pan out. And then things panned out to an extent that the upgrade that they've been waiting for and working towards came in Austin. It was too late by then. It really was. Leadership, though, I've given him a 7 out of 10 because I do think when you need a crew to go into the trenches, Gunter is the man and the team principal to inspire them. And people are inspired by Gunter, and he has a terrific relationship with the whole team. He manages his drivers very well. K-Mag and Nico Hulkenberg are vastly experienced, but you never hear them complaining too much. And you don't that rivalry that could have been there after certain media pen moments in the past has never spilled over at the team. So in many, many ways, Gunter is a terrific team principal, but I think technically and his technical leadership, you have to mark him down for that.
Yeah, Matt, on leadership, I've got Gunter 7th out of the 10 team principals for leadership. His positioning with the FIA, his willingness, Crofty, to actually get into rights of review and fight Haas's corner is almost unparalleled. I can think only Andy Stevenson and Mike Crack at Aston Martin are more vociferous in going to the FIA stewards and making things happen, making things work for their team. But yes, no, you're right. And I've got to tell you about a little moment I saw with Gene Haas in the pit lane. It was a couple of races before the upgrade, and he was with Simone Resta, the technical director, who's sort of on the long line from Ferrari, but he is with Haas at the moment, was going through Gene Haas with the car, pointing things out physically on the car that was wrong and that Simone Resta wanted to change, and that Gene Haas was kind of saying, well, what about this bit? What about this bit? What about the side pods? I've seen some other cars are doing this. So Gene Haas, is involved. And I hadn't heard that, actually, Crofty, what you said about that Gunter thought it was the car was effectively okay. They just needed to work on the tyre degradation. But in the end, it was all one and the same, wasn't it? And to get the tyre degradation changed, they needed to change the car, which they will next year.
Yeah. I think they've reached, with their 2 drivers, as you mentioned, if you think about the drivers that they've had at that team over the last few years, with Mazepin, with Schumacher as well, it feels like now perhaps they have just kind of reached a good point with 2 stable drivers who on their day can perform very well. And I think, Gunter has managed them brilliantly. The
key for me with Haas is that they've also now got a long-term partnership with a title sponsor. There's money coming into that team now that isn't Gene Haas or Nikita Mazepin linked. And that title sponsor deal should allow them the freedom to pursue more upgrades, to actually have a bit more of a technical budget. But also with it comes pressure, because I'm sure that sponsor will want to see a bit more success on the track. And at the moment, things are very harmonious and it's all good on both sides. But, Gunter will find himself under pressure, the more they attract big sponsorship deals. And I think they will do. I really do. They're a very marketable asset. They are the underdog fighting against the big dogs, Haas. And Gunter's very good at laying down that narrative as well. But, with that comes pressure. And I think next year's a really interesting year for Haas because they can't afford to and shouldn't be struggling at the foot of the table.
Certainly. Shall we give a total then for everyone for Steiner? So Ted, total of 15 points for you. Crofty, it was a total of 25 points for you.
Yes,
And
out
for
of 40.
myself, out of 40, yes, sorry, we should say out of 40. And for myself, 17. So in the middle of both of you.
So is that 17 out of 40?
17 out of 40, yeah.
So there's the big headline already. Matt Baker thinks Gunter Steiner is awful.
With all his experience of F1 team principal, is laying it on thick.
We'll go through at the end. Around eighth out of 10 is what I'm going. Around 8th out of 10 is what I'm going.
Okay. All right, let's move it on to Alfa Romeo, who finished 9th in the championship on 16 points, just ahead of Haas. Alessandro Aluni-Bravi. Crofty, I'll start with you on this one. Would you walk us through some of your scores, please?
Well, for a start, and sadly, Alessandro is not the team principal, he's the team representative. And I'm assuming he is carrying out the orders of the CEO, Andreas Seidel, and that of the technical team. But that said, I'm still not quite sure where he really fits in at a racetrack. And I'm sad to say he's fairly anonymous, and that could be my fault as well. But I don't hear from him very often. I certainly don't speak to him very often. He doesn't seem to be a big force in the paddock. And I've marked him down quite severely in everything but HR, management of people, because I do think no one seems to be disgruntled. Yes, they've had a couple of names that have left at the end of the season, but no one seems to be bickering. No one seems to be fighting. No one seems to be saying we need this, and this. Everyone maybe is treading water a certain extent to when Audi come in full time from 2026. The drivers seem fairly happy, but their performance on the track has not been good enough. It really hasn't. When you look at the start they made to the 2022 season, they then fell away, and then they continued to fall away in 2023. So it was mediocre at best, but everyone seemed quite happy with it, which is why he got a 7 out of 10 for HR and didn't really trouble the judges much in every other category.
Ironically, I was going to say in 2022, I was reading he was in charge of HR and IT and marketing and communications. So, there we go, HR.
Well, he's an interesting character. Let me tell you about Alessandro Aluni-Bravi, if you're not familiar with him. Italian lawyer, made his name, came into Formula One as Robert Kubica's manager. And then when Kubica was kind of linked through Orlen, the Polish oil concern, with that Sauber team, then he got involved, got a job with Sauber, the team, and was managing director, I think, for a while. But anyway, so he is now the team representative. So as we say, not truly a team principal. It is a hybrid role, but he has dealt with the technical side. So Jan Monchot, who was the technical director, out. James Key, who you could argue had a hand, and whether it's quite a sizable hand or not, we don't quite know, in the good bits of the new McLaren, rather than the bad McLaren that started the season. James Key in to the team that he used to be at Sauber. So he has made a big change on there. But it's not really... how much is it Alessandro Aluni-Bravi's responsibility to lead the team? Not so much. I've put him 9th for that. HR, I've put him 9th also. Technical performance, I've put him 9th. And what was the other one? That was it, wasn't it? No, media and sponsorship. I put him 9th for that as well. Actually, he is a jolly nice chap. If you do go down to Alfa Romeo Sauber and talk to him, or talk to him after press conferences, in my experience, he'll give you very full and very accurate and very truthful and self-critical in terms of the team answers. So actually, on a media and sponsorship, he's pretty good. It's just that the way Sauber have arranged it, with Andreas Seidel constantly in the background as they wait for the Audi takeover of the whole team in a couple of years, he is a little bit anonymous.
Right, I tell you what then, Matt, I'm going to be swayed here because Ted's actually just reminded me of something. I'm going to move up media and sponsorship to 5 out of 10. And the reason I'm also going to do that is because the one thing that Alfa Romeo, as they were last year, have done is get sponsorship on that car. and have brought in sponsorship that isn't just Audi over the last kind of year and a half, and we saw the special livery, didn't we, in Las Vegas? Not that I liked that special delivery. Did look a bit too much like the Mercedes, but black is the new color because you don't have to paint black. It's just carbon fiber and it saves weights, ladies and gentlemen. So expect more black liveries in the future on this one. But I'll give him an extra couple of marks for media and sponsorship then.
Okay, very good, very good. I've gone very low. I've gone 2 for media and sponsorship, just because we don't seem to talk to him. It doesn't seem to appear much on Sky Sports or have much for
I do the interviews, Matthew. It's not my fault if they don't get used. I think you need to. You can't say that he doesn't appear because we do interview him, but other things get in the way. And with the best will in the world, Sauber, unless they have a big, point score or there's a big accident, we don't tend to talk about them, which will change next year when I confidently predict that we'll be talking about them more. And, Crofty, they return to being called Sauber. Thank you very much.
Yes. Not that they ever stopped.
No,
not
in
that
my
they ever
eyes,
stopped in your eyes.
In my eyes, not that they ever stopped.
I'm beginning to think, though, Ted, that Matt Baker is a proper liability on this podcast. And, after this first couple of marks that we've got through here, I mean, if he was on Strictly Come Dancing, there'd be a revolt before they got to the Blackpool Tower Ballroom, quite frankly.
Craig
Some of these marks
over here. Sorry, well, I just wanted to go. I wanted to.
2 out of 10. 2 out of 10.
Once we get to the high marks, you see, it will shine through, and my scoring system will prove its worth.
Who's next?
Yes, look, I've gone for 2. So Alessandro gets 8 for Ted. Crofty, you with your new score would get 18, and I have given him a total of 12. There we go.
Excellent.
All right, moving on. Who's next? Franz Tost and Alpha Tauri. A goodbye, of course, to Franz Tost. So,
can I just say goodbye and thanks for the memories, Franz Tost, because I on a personal level, I have really enjoyed speaking to Franz Tost over the years. He's been nothing but honest, sometimes too honest. Often giving me quotes that I couldn't ever possibly repeat in front of a family audience, given his honesty about the team. But a man who absolutely cared passionately about his job, his team, and the role he found himself in. Ted, you went to see him at the factory in Faenza. One of the most heartwarming pieces ever. A man so proud to show you around as to what they had. And it's a strange anomaly because you often got the feeling with Franz that he couldn't do what he wanted. He was a bit beholden to the soft drinks company. He was a bit beholden to the big team in what he had to say and do. And his place was very much in charge of the junior team. But my God, did he do some wonders for that junior team? Let's not forget a junior team that have won 2 races as well. That have produced podiums, that have produced fabulous drivers, that have gone on to even more success. And I think the sport is going to miss Franz Tost a lot because quietly in the background, he spoke common sense and he spoke with passion and authority and he cared deeply about what he was doing.
In the best tradition of the Sterling Moss level of honorific ability in Formula One, he was a racer, wasn't he?
Yes,
he was a racer. Is a racer, Franz Tost. And so, in his honour, I've decided to dress in the AlphaTauri livery for Las Vegas and Abu Dhabi. Although this is the closest I get to a Christmas jumper, I like to call it French fisherman. But I just realised that it does actually look like the AlphaTauri livery that they had for the last 2 races of the season. By the way, by the time this goes out, they might be called now Racing Bulls financial sponsor number 1 and financial sponsor number 2. So look out for that. That's what we think they're going to be called. In my rankings in the technical performance, he actually comes 7th in that because he realised that the car was going in the wrong direction and made the technical changes, not spoken about too much during the season, that he needed to. And that came back to be the fastest of the sort of lower midfield cars towards the end of the season. So actually, I've given 7th out of the 10th for technical performance. For HR, I've given him the 8th position, Franz Tost, because he could, as you say, Crofty, be sometimes quite hard on his own people. but he saw that as a motivating way. And leadership, I've also put him around the 8th out of 10th mark because, while, exactly as you say, Crofty, while he was very good in leadership, the team would have done anything for him, he wasn't the actual last case leader of the team. There was Helmut Marko, who's above him, and ultimately Oliver Mintzlaff, and before his passing, of course, Dietrich Mateschitz. But as far as leadership goes, Franz was always good on that.
I've given Franz 7 out of 10 for leadership because I think people respected him and wanted to work hard for him. But I've marked him down a little bit because, as Scrooge found out, some people do want Christmas Day off from time to time. I've given him 4 out of 10 for technical performance. What I'm saying, basically...
Did he not used to give his people Christmas Day off?
Well, eventually he had to. But
I was reading that last year he was working on a sponsorship deal.
Yeah.
In Lawrence Barretto's article, he was working till 4:30 p.m. on Christmas Day.
Yeah. Honestly,
commitment.
One of the things that help you understand Franz Tost, I saw on the world feed before the commentary in Abu Dhabi, his last race, as he sat down on the pit wall and got out his notebook, ready to make a load of notes. Like, Franz, why are you making the notes, mate? It's your last race. Just sit back and enjoy it. What are you going to do with this notebook? Unless he wants to produce, a Gunther Steiner type epic for next year. I don't know. But he's got a 7 out of 10. 4 out of 10 for technical performance. Look, I know that car was upgraded a lot. And by the end of the season, it probably had more upgrades brought to the track than any other car. But I don't think that was all coming from the AlphaTauri leadership, quite frankly. There seemed to be a bit of a helping hand on that one to me. And I don't, whilst France might have identified it, to me, that wasn't an AlphaTauri thing. That's all I'm going to say on that one. And the car was rubbish at the start of the year. It really wasn't good. Ask Nick de Vries, who I thought was a real shame about Nick de Vries. I'm not saying that Liam Lawson wasn't brilliant or Daniel Ricciardo wasn't brilliant, but it was a real shame for Nick de Vries that he had to try and drive in Formula One in that particular car. And then didn't get a chance, when the good bits came later on in the season. That wasn't Franz Tost's choice then. HR, he's got an 8 out of 10 because, the drivers seem harmonious. The team seem harmonious. I don't think there was any reason to mark him down too much. And media and sponsorship 5 because he wasn't really allowed to do much media and sponsorship. There were times we asked and they said no. And I think the more it became closer to the leaving dates, the less France was allowed to put his head above the parapet to a certain extent. I'm praising France, but I'm also going to praise his replacement. I think Laurent Mekies will be a fabulous team principal and a very different way of doing things, very different person, but they know him well in Faenza, having been there before, and I think he'll slot into the job excellently.
Speaking of leadership, do you remember in Saudi Arabia, I think it was, when he denounced his aero engineers in the press conference?
Oh, yeah.
He said he didn't trust them.
Yeah.
And that was
at that stage, I'm not surprised.
Well, yeah, but you're surprised maybe he's airing it in such a public forum.
And on the last race, he said he thought that Tsunoda's strategy was terrible and that the strategist made a real mistake doing him on the 1 stop, and he could have possibly got the points they needed to move up in the constructors had he gone on the 2 stop. I think HR, I've put Franz 8th out of 10th in HR. The fact that the team got through more drivers than I've had Christmas dinners and I've had sprouts. So I only had 3 sprouts, and actually they got through, 4 drivers? 5?
Yeah.
4.
Well, it was 4.
Tsunoda, Daniel, Liam, and Nick. Yeah, exactly. So,
but that's not him. That's not necessarily down to France.
So then he gets down on leadership as well. So yeah, maybe HR should be going down 1 a bit.
I had a fabulous exchange with him in the paddock at a race. We were talking in general. Sometimes you could get Franz when he had 5 or 10 minutes and just chew the cud of Formula One. And we were talking about drivers. And he said, every single driver in this paddock deserves to be in this paddock, deserves to be in Formula One except 2. I went, really? 2? I said, and who would they be? And he said, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to name them. But I could not disagree with a word he said about that one. And he then went on to explain absolutely why they really shouldn't be in Formula One at the moment. But I'm not going to tell you who, because that would be unfair on those
I
drivers.
bet he did his little snigger, his little, and then he said, "Okay,
yes.
Crofty, goodbye, Crofty. Okay, goodbye. Anyway, goodbye, Franz. I will miss you." I love him.
Goodness me.
Thanking you, Crofty. Thanking you.
I said to him once, Franz, thanks ever so much for being on the pit wall for us this weekend. It's been absolutely brilliant. He went, yes, no, it's been okay, but next time pick a race where we're not tugging so badly. And he was and refreshingly honest about that, because they'd had a dreadful weekend.
Yeah, we're definitely going to miss him. Formula One is going to miss him. So yeah, there we go. Franz Tost. So Ted, you gave him a total of 12 points. Crofty, 24 for you.
Yep.
My one, 19.
Seriously, you've done it again. Matt, you're going to get us into so much trouble with this podcast.
Oh,
he's got the Franz Tost snigger as well.
Yeah, right.
Yes, thank you very much, Crofty. I'm liking this.
Moving on. Right, James Vowles is next. Williams finished 7th and admirably held off that challenge from Franz Tost AlphaTauri at the end of the season. They scored 28 points. In terms of, it's obviously his first season in charge at Williams. So Ted, go on, take the floor. How would you assess year one? And I think in terms of where he's brought the team from 2022, what he's done in 2023, it's pretty impressive, isn't it?
It is, and I think that technical that position of where they finished in the constructors, what was it, seventh, doesn't equate to where all of us, I think, have him in our rankings of team principals of the year 2023. And it's weird because you would look at it on the surface and think James Vowles is one of these technical team bosses that we mentioned earlier in the style of Mike Crack or Andrea Stella. But he's been given so much more latitude by whoever it is who actually owns Williams these days, Doralton Capital. I don't think there's one person who's actually the owner. Maybe there is, but we don't know who they are. And so while he is a technical team boss in that sense, he's been given so much more latitude to revolutionize the way Williams Grand Prix engineering go about making and racing Formula One cars. And that's the crucial thing. The job that he came to Grove to do was so huge, is probably still so huge, and that Williams, I think by common consent, have kind of been stuck in the 90s, early 2000s when they were last winning things, and Formula One has moved on so much in that sense since then that Vowles said himself, we have facilities we need to upgrade, we have working methods we need to upgrade, and we need to bring more people because this is a people business. He's done all that. He's been great on communicating with the outside world through the media. He's been great on HR, bringing in Pat Fry, a very good technical organizer. He's been great on dealing with the drivers, giving confidence and trusting Logan Sargent with a second year in that car and just helping give Alex Albon everything he needs to shine. And on technical performance, I've ranked him consistently sort of 5-6 on all of mine. Technical performance, I've ranked him 6th. HR, I've ranked him actually 3rd because I think he's done a brilliant job on actually getting everybody right. You don't hear many grumbles, do you, from Williams, even though he's in the middle of a sort of transformation, as they call it in business, don't they? But what else? On leadership, I've put him 5th. Out of 10 as well. Media sponsorship, I've actually put him 4th. So yeah, I think Vowles has done a superb job, and I think more or less everybody agrees. Crofty?
Yeah, my overall marks might not reflect this, but he's my team boss of the year, really? Without a doubt. If you look at the lead time that he had before he took up the role, you're talking a matter of 3 months maximum. That is not a lot of time to put into operation any sort of plan where you hit the ground running and you get instant results. He didn't take up the reins till the start of February, I think it was officially. So had no real influence whatsoever on the car at the start. But it became quickly apparent to me, watching during testing, that he was introducing simple tweaks and changes to the way Williams went racing that would make them better right from the start. Things that would have been run-of-the-mill behind the scenes at Mercedes for a race team, he was now bringing in to Williams to say, look, I know you do it this way, try doing it this way. Behind the scenes, he was also putting into preparation and operation, long-term planning for the future, identifying where he needed key members of technical staff. Pat Fry joining was not a surprise to me whatsoever. I think Pat became a bit disillusioned at Alpine and was a man that would be very much on James's wish list. He was looking at the factory and what needs changing at the factory, what CapEx spend Williams need. There was a halfway through the season, he went and asked for the rules on CapEx to be relaxed a bit because they wanted to spend money and they had money to spend. Didn't quite get through everything he wanted. And maybe there's a couple of marks lost in not playing the overall political strategic game to its fullest extent within the auspices of other team principals in the FIA.
So just explain that CapEx. He wanted to increase the capital expenditure of what? Of new wind
that was allowed under cost cap rules.
New buildings.
New buildings. He wanted an allowance for more money and he didn't get the full amount. Basically, he got a certain amount, but not the full amount.
Because he feels that the facilities at Grove were...
The infrastructure at Grove is lagging behind, the likes of McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, you name it, because Williams were upgrading their facilities first. So he's put all that into operation while still attending the races, still having an eye on the way the team go racing, while still, helping the drivers, because at Mercedes, a lot of his work was working directly with the drivers. He was a perfect choice for a team principal if you wanted someone to help driver development. So one of the reasons I'm really glad they've kept Logan Sargent on, because I think if anyone can get the best out of Logan Sargent, it will be James. Now, whether he does or not, I don't know. That's up to Logan. But I think he's a perfect man for that. And it didn't surprise me that they've kept Logan on for that reason. And also he might have a plan for 2025 that why change it now and just bring someone new in for just one season? We don't know necessarily, but that's me hypothesizing on that. And he's done all of that working 16-hour days. And he admits to working 16-hour days in doing this. I saw him in Baku. We had a great chat in Baku as he was leaving the track and I was walking back to the hotel. So it was quite late at night because obviously, things in Baku don't finish. And we didn't finish at the track until about 8 o'clock. And I said, "You okay?" He said, I'm exhausted, but I'm loving it. He said, "I knew there was a big job, but I didn't realize how big this job was going to be. But I'm absolutely loving it." And that was in Baku. And we've talked a lot since. And he's still, I'm glad to say, really enjoying it. He works brilliantly with the sponsors. He engages with the media, explains things, not just about Williams, but about, what's going on track. He engages with fans. I love him on social media because he actually engages directly with the fans. People are inspired by him. And I think he will go on to be one of the top team principals at a top team in 3 or 4 years' time. I really do. He understands marketing. He is an engineer by trade. He understands strategy. He understands drivers, and he's beginning to understand the politics. And James Vowles could be the big team boss of the future. And I really hope he will be, because he deserves it, because he works tirelessly for success.
Yeah, you gave him 10 for media and sponsorship. And when we've had him on the pit wall this year, he's been excellent at breaking things down, but also, just in his little rap videos that he does on YouTube on the Williams social media sites, he's brilliant at it. And I think also the way he dealt with Logan at the end of the season, I thought was really interesting. It wasn't throwing him under a bus; it was justifying everything that went wrong. Was able to go, well, it's because of this. Imagine if you hadn't have had testing, and he made sense of perhaps why he was struggling. And I think that was quite refreshing. Yeah. From a team principal to be that honest. Just
on the subject of Logan Sargent, I see a lot of criticism of Logan Sargent, and sometimes that criticism can be fair, and he has crashed a few more times than he really wants to be doing. But a lot of the criticism is, oh look, he hasn't even out qualified his teammate, for heaven's sake. He can't even beat his teammate in qualifying. It's true, but the last person to go through a whole season and not beat his teammate in qualifying was Alex Albon. And should we have written Alex Albon off right at that moment? Well, actually, with the benefit of hindsight, no, we shouldn't, because he's turned into a fine driver. You're not always like a Max Verstappen coming out of the box and being brilliant straight away. Sometimes you need a bit more time. Let's see how Logan does next year. And I think he'll do a lot better for the experience that he's had this year.
Yeah, but hang on. Alex Albon was out-qualified all season by Max Verstappen. So,
Yeah, but Ted
did have his excuses there.
Yes, that's very true. But you've been extolling the virtues of Alex Albon this year long before he gave you a free pair of trainers. So, I still think he's, there's no shame in being out-qualified as a rookie by Alex Albon.
Yep, those trainers, by the way, they raised almost £400 for the Grand Prix Trust.
Brilliant.
So thank you very much, whoever did that. So listen, James Vowles, let's sum it up. I think he's very high. I like Crofty's idea that he's the team principal of the season. I think that's a good argument to have. I think in the end, I'd put him fifth. And he's like a sort of cool physics teacher, isn't he? When he does those explanations of what's going on, you kind of think, oh, thank heaven we're in Mr. Vowles' lesson. He's going to explain things in a way of physics that I understand. Unlike that Mr. Croft who explains things in a really convoluted way. Okay, and I have got just to round this out, I have got the JV F1 Instagram. So clearly he couldn't get James Vowles back when Instagram launch, so someone else is place sitting on James Vowles on Instagram. So whoever it is, if there is another James Vowles in the world, I'd be a bit surprised, and B, can you give that moniker back to J? He has to be JV.F1, not even JVF1. Has Jacques Villeneuve got that? It looks it's just a sort of series of pictures of himself. Really, there's one of Alex Albon there.
It's his Instagram feed. Why not, Ted?
Well, I don't know. I've got, as I say, I've got pictures of cars and racing bits and pictures of tyre marbles. But hey, if you want to put loads of pictures of yourself on your Instagram feature, then why not? Seems like everybody else does.
That's why he's working 16-hour days to try and manage a new Instagram account. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, so there we go. James Vowles. Ted, your total was
I think
28.
I think he's fifth for me. He's pretty much fifth for me.
Yeah. Crofty, you got 33 for him, and you'll be pleased to know I did rank James very highly. 27 points.
Good.
It's about time you started being nice to someone.
I beg your pardon. Yes. Sorry. Right. Anyway, let's move on. Who is next? Alpine are next. And Bruno Famin, the interim team principal at Alpine. Interim for how long? And at what point does interim become team principal?
In the words of football fans, on the terraces when your team's gone 2-0 up and you want to taunt the home fans. It's all gone quiet over there. Yeah? It's all gone quiet over there. This interim
I thought you were going to say you're getting sacked on Monday morning.
Yeah, sacked in the morning. No, I wasn't going to say that. This interim team principal that had us all very excited that Mattia Binotto was going to Alpine, it's all gone a bit quiet, hasn't it? The interim bit seems to be getting longer and longer with no sign of a change in that. So maybe Bruno is here to stay for a while. And look, Bruno's vastly experienced, has been around motorsport for a long, long time, knows his onions. But has he instigated change for the better compared to what was happening before? Or do we need to wait a little bit longer? I'm told that there are people coming to Alpine and people that might have been put in place by the previous regime. I think to get rid of a team principal halfway through the season and the glare of the media spotlight at Spa was brave, if I'm being generous, slightly foolhardy if I'm being Matt Baker. But has anything at Alpine that has gone on off track instigated change on track? That's the big question. And I'm not sure it has. So I've kind of gone for very mediocre, middle of the road marks on this.
Yeah. Also, just to say on how Otmar left mid-season was a very strange situation where he was told on the Friday of Belgium.
Yes,
I believe. Or maybe he was even told a bit earlier, but publicly it was Friday. And then sort of the rest of the weekend, it became about him waving goodbye. We had all these slow-mo shots of him kind of waving. It was all a bit strange, I thought, and an odd way to let someone go. Perhaps you would choose to do that in the summer or in the off-season when maybe you don't have the glare of the paddock cameras on.
Look,
Ted, I don't know what you
I'm glad they did it when they did it, but if I was their PR communications director, I'd be saying, could we just not wait 4 days for this?
No.
Yes.
No,
Yeah.
they chose to do it that way, Crofty.
I know they did.
They chose to do it. This was I came to this realization and sort of checked it with various people in the know who never really denied it. But I think it was Renault's wish to show that they were making big changes and to be seen to doing that. And the best way to be seen to doing that was not to bury bad news in the summer break. It was to do it on the Thursday or the Friday of a race weekend, where they could publicly say, we think, whether they were or they were not, that Otmar Zafnauer and Alan Permain, and by the way, what did Alan Permain do wrong, are the reasons why this car and this team are not performing, and we have parted company with them in some terms of they've agreed to leave the team in whatever deal they came to. So yeah, clearly on HR, Famine is last. He's also last in my leadership category, and tech performance, he's actually 8th, because I think he addressed the one thing that he did do, and I'll come on to why he did this in a second, is address the fact that the Renault, the Alpine power unit is down, and is addressing that for next year. So there are reasons why we should feel optimistic for Alpine next year if they can get a good chassis. They are working on their power deficit. But the truth is that, as you say, Famine is a very good engineer. That's his background. He's an engineer. He's been thrust into this team principal role that I don't know if he wants. He didn't seem particularly well prepared for it. Certainly when he was announcing and fielding questions about the departure of Zafnauer and Permain, didn't seem particularly well prepared for it, and I'm not sure he really wants it. So yeah, I think it's possibly unfair for this one, which is why in leadership he's the last of all of them to say that he's scoring the way he is, because he is only an interim team principal.
I mean, look, Davide Brivio is departing the team.
Yep, gone.
I would imagine Bruno has had a hand in that.
Back to MotoGP.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing. There seem to be a lot of chiefs at Alpine, and probably a few more chiefs than they needed. Matt Harmon, I think, has slotted into his role well. So things might be happening behind the scenes that will bring more success in the future. But I hear at the moment their car is not where they want it to be on the sim in terms of performance for next season. And Bruno will be judged on that because he, as team principal, he has to oversee that engineering side. And I think it's another team for whom next year is a very big year. To finish 4th in 2022 was good work. To bring Pierre Gasly in for last year, I think was good, solid work. I'll give Bruno his due. He's kept it harmonious between Pierre and Esteban, and we did fear that things might spill over at times. I know he wasn't there in Australia when they had their crash together, but they have a good partnership, and that continued to the end of the season. They finished 6th this year. To start dropping down the pecking order even more, then the car company are going to ask questions as to what's going on and why we're putting all this money in. And the fact is that they're probably not putting enough money in, and the engine isn't as good as it should be. So people at Enstone are a little bit hamstrung in what they're trying to do. But you try to explain that to the bosses at Viry, and I'm not sure you're going to get, a sympathetic ear with it.
Well, where does it leave them with their fated 100 race plan, or was it a 5-year plan?
Well, no, it was 100.
I forget about
Otmar getting.
I forget
33.
about where we are.
Yeah, but that was Otmar's downfall, wasn't it? When he tried to point out that your 5-year plan might need an extension.
And what happened to Zinedine Zidane? Much announced in the.
Well, didn't they go and see him a couple of days ago?
Yeah, a couple of days ago.
Recently
Season's over.
Yeah.
Where was he at every race? In the back of the garage. Came, come on, LA Les Bleus. Come on.
Came to the season launch and was there at the end of the season.
And they're at the end of the season. I expected to see him in the back of the garage.
Who needs Zinedine Zidane when you got Ryan Reynolds and Rory McIlroy? Come on.
Well, that's true. They do have some way to go, some performance on the Investion side. But I think they do need a kind of a strong leadership person. I'm going to suggest the last person to win 2 races for that Benetton team, Johnny Herbert. He'd make a good team principal. He knows Enstone. They need someone who knows Enstone in and out, inside and out, in the way that Flavio did during the glory years at Enstone.
But it's interesting.
Pick up that team and go. Yeah.
To go back to the investment from the Hollywood A-listers and the sporting superstars, it's not just about big names being associated with the team. With that brings opportunities to explore avenues in other sports and in other high-profile industries, whereby if you use it correctly, you make contacts and you bring people into the team that you might not have thought about in the first place, but actually might be the right people to do it. And I think, look, we've seen Alpine do it. I think we'll see other teams, I hate to use the phrase getting into bed, but partnering with sporting entities or investment companies that own other sporting groups and giants. Because Formula One cannot operate on an island if it wants to be successful in the future. And you have to go and seek out where the new coaching methods are, the new ways of running business, the new way of economies of scale to still bring performance in. And we can, learn from other sports in doing that. And I think you will see other teams doing that more and more in the future. And, Sauber, God bless them, tried a partnership with Chelsea many, many years ago and didn't exploit that in the way that maybe they should have done, the potential that could have been there. But Alpine are in prime position to exploit that. And I know of other teams that will be looking down that road in the future as well.
Yeah, I think since Wrexham and since those guys took over Wrexham, that might be a trend. You're right, but not just for Formula One, but for other sports in the future, certainly. So, go on. Let's wrap up Alpine and Famine. So, Ted, you've given him 6 points. Crofty, you have given him 18 points, and I've given him 16 points.
Yeah,
there we go.
I think the headline is we want to see feast. Sadly, we had a famine.
No, he's well done to Boom Boom. He's well down in my list. 9th out of 10th. Possibly could have been 10th, but for the real reason that I think he is just an interim team principal. I'm not even sure whether he wants the job or is their long-term view. So maybe it's not fair to put him on this list. And he only had half a season to show what he could do after Zat Van Hour and Permain. By the way, Alan Permain soon to be back in Formula One. So the rumor says. We're not going to say which team we think he's coming back, but look out for him in 2024. Yeah, sorry, Crofty, what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, absolutely right. He Alan Permain messaged me in Abu Dhabi to say, as much as I love listening to you, I'm glad this is the last time I'm going to hear your commentary for a while. So he's definitely coming back and will be a proper asset to the team that he's coming back to.
Good. Always a compliment tinged with a typical Permain bit of
correct.
Bit of